This is the CJ Silas Show. She's been talking sports for over half her life. You'll hear big-name guests and all the hot topics. Her roller derby sisters call her Dodge Her Blue. CJ's proud of her California roots and time in New York. Born and raised in L.A., college at USC and Syracuse University. She's not afraid to share her opinions with you. And, like it or not, she wants to be the change. Ladies and gentlemen, all ears and no mask required. Here she is, CJ Silas.
Hey, welcome in live and direct from the CJ Silas Show, the ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7 studios of The Ticket. I love this week. It's my favorite week of the year. Can anybody guess why it's my favorite week of the year without coming on the radio? Hey, Gabe got it right. Jackie Robinson night in Major League Baseball. It's this Friday. All over Major League Baseball. Normally, I go to Dodger Stadium to celebrate this event, but I can't this year. I have to work. There's no possible way that I can leave the Central Coast and drive to Dodger Stadium this Friday to go to Jackie Robinson night. So I will celebrate. In fact, when I see you this weekend, because I'm going to find all my interns on Friday and Saturday, because I'm getting Jackie Robinson custom-made cupcakes for all the people that I love, because I can't celebrate at Jackie Robinson night at Dodger Stadium. So if you love me and you want a cupcake and you don't live on the Central Coast, you better get up here on Friday, because it's going to be a party. I am working at the restaurant that night, and I am taking cupcakes into the restaurant. And, of course, California Fresh Markets is making me my cupcakes because they love the CJ Silas Show. Okay, I haven't had any alcohol. I haven't smoked any weed. I'm on Jackie Robinson Happy Juice. Why else am I on Happy Juice? One of my favorite people that makes me actually nervous when he's on my show, one of my favorite people in the business, a mentor of mine, one of the first people that I met in this business that encouraged me to do this and keep doing this even when times were difficult. Chris Berman will be on the show in about 10 minutes. Even my interns are nervous. I always say, if you get butterflies, you get sweaty palms, you get a little sweat in your lower back or on your neck or in your little cleavage, you're nervous about something. It's like butterflies when you play sports. Everybody knows what that feels like, I hope. It means you care. Even though I've talked to him 100 times, even though I've spent time with him, I know his family. Even though I've known him for over 30 years, I'm still nervous for him to come on my show. I don't know why, but I am. We will get to Chris Berman. We're going to talk to him about the Universal DH. We're going to talk to him about Jackie Robinson. We're also going to reminisce about our time together in the War Room at ESPN on Sundays when I worked for him on NFL Game Day and NFL Primetime. Those were some of the longest days I've ever worked in this business. And I did get to go home for lunch in the middle and walk the dog, but it was a long, long Sunday in the early 1990s when I lived in Bristol, Connecticut and worked with Chris Mortensen, Tom Jackson, Joe Theismann, and Chris Berman. I'm not name dropping. It's just the truth. It's where I started. ESPN TV, Bristol, Connecticut, 1991. Not really exactly where I started, but it was my first professional gig, living on my own, making almost enough money to survive. We'll talk to him. But before we do that, I've got to talk to you about my favorite, my WWJD, Jackie Robinson, Jackie Roosevelt Robinson, born in Cairo, Georgia, January 31st, 1919. Moved to Pasadena pretty soon after he was born, where his mom worked as a housekeeper. He lettered in 5 sports in high school at Muir. He was named the Pacific leader in tennis shortly before going to college. Did any of y'all know that baseball was not his best sport? Tennis was his best sport. He played football. He did a little bit of professional football. He played basketball before he started playing baseball. And a football injury delayed him going to serve in the military. At the end of his service in the Army, he met a former player for the Kansas City Monarchs who encouraged him to focus on baseball. His brother Mac, also a great athlete, won a silver medal in the 1936 Olympics. Nobody thinks of him because that was the year that Jesse Owens won the gold medal. People don't consider that silver medalist much of anything. If you don't win a gold, it seems like you just go back to your own life. You don't even get any recognition, which is crazy. That means you're one of the 2 best runners in the world. Jackie Robinson played in the Negro Leagues, which, by the way, 3 women also played in the Negro Leagues. One of the women, Connie Morgan from the Indianapolis Clowns, was very close to Jackie Robinson. The Brooklyn Dodgers, the second integrated team that Jackie Robinson played baseball for, first being the Montreal Royals. Jackie Robinson was the first athlete to have his number universally retired throughout Major League Baseball. As a player, he played in 6 World Series with the Brooklyn Dodgers, only won one of them. Isn't that crazy? He retired early. That's why. After he retired, he played a key role in New York's black business community, helping found the Freedom National Bank in Harlem, the first black-owned and operated bank in the United States. JR 42 night in Major League Baseball, which happens every year on April 15th, was started in 2004. He spent 10 years playing in the majors. He stole home 19 times. That will never happen again. He got the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal for his work during the Civil Rights Movement. Check this out. I say this every year, and everybody goes, what? He lived in Atascadero, California. Yes, he did. I know. Hard for you to believe, but he did. In 1941, he was the assistant athletic director at a youth association in Atascadero that was sponsored by Franklin Delano Roosevelt to help 16 to 25-year-olds get on the right path. Come on. Nobody knew that. I know people say, what? Atascadero is actually trying to do some sort of memorial for him, maybe in the Sunken Gardens. I'm not really sure, but I want to be part of that, just so you know. The Jackie Robinson Museum was supposed to open in New York in 2020. It still hasn't, because guess what? When it happens, I'm taking a trip to New York. I'm going for the opening of the Jackie Robinson Museum downtown in New York, Manhattan. He won his only World Series in 1955 with the Dodgers. In 1947, he won the Major League Baseball Rookie of the Year, 6 straight All-Star games, the NL MVP, the first African-American to win a National League Most Valuable Player, inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962. Jackie Robinson, there are books written about him everywhere. And if we don't keep his legacy alive, if we don't keep his name in our vocabulary, in our stories, in our words, people won't recognize what he went through. More significant than what he did for baseball is how he handled it. He was patient. He was nonviolent, even though at times he sure wanted to be when people were throwing food and items at his family. His family actually couldn't even go to the games after a while because of the abuse that they were dealing with in the stands. He died much too early at 53 years old. 53. He died. He was younger than me when he died. Oh, my gosh. Died in October. We do talk about him in October as well, because we need to. He was the stolen base leader in the National League twice. His numbers not only retired all over baseball, but also at UCLA. The Dodgers did it first. He has his name included with the Major League Baseball All-Century team. It's really incredible if you don't know much about Jackie Robinson and how Branch Rickey chose him, because he was probably the only person that could handle what he was going to have to deal with in 1947. He couldn't sleep in the hotels with his teammates. He couldn't eat with his teammates. He couldn't use the same restrooms as his teammates. And by the way, black people still weren't allowed to use white restrooms anyway, but even he wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed anywhere where they were. It was just awful. I mean, I think there were times when he had to sleep in the bus. It was just an awful thing to go through, but he had the guts and the courage to be that first person. And he used nonviolence as his talent, because it was just so nuts what he had to go through. He also was awarded those medals that I said, the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the gold medal, after he passed away. He was married and still is, even though he's passed away, to Rachel Robinson. They met at a very young age. I think they were at UCLA when they met. Just incredible, the human that he was. And we need to keep his legacy alive. We need to actually also honor the fact that if he was alive, he would be mortified that the fight he was fighting in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, well, 50s and 60s, is still going on. He would be so upset that this is still happening to black and brown people, that the persecution, that the discrimination, the disrespect, it's just unbelievable. And I know that he's probably, I don't know, what's that? I don't like cliches, but if he's watching what's going on in this world, he's super bummed out. And that's a really casual way to say it. I think it's because I'm wearing my surf shirt, so I'm kind of feeling casual. But what Jackie Robinson went through and what he did really created a walkway and a pathway and a doorway for so many others, guys from Cuba and the Dominican and Mexico and Colombia and Panama. And it's just incredible what he went through. If you didn't see the movie, that's a good story for you to see. There are a lot of books. There's actually a book that he wrote called I Never Had It Made, which is devastating because he goes through the details of what happened to him. Coming up, after we talk to Chris Berman live on the CJ Silas Show, your Cal Poly Sports Update, I have a story that if I don't get to this week, it's okay. But you must remind me. There is a spiritual story. There are spirits with me over the past few days, and I think it's because it's Jackie Robinson week in Major League Baseball. But there are spirits. A story that happened to me at Cal Poly Baseball this weekend that continued for 3 days, and then something that came in the mail yesterday. That's all coming up after Chris Berman, as well as, don't let me forget, Gabe, Black History. I want to thank my partners, Jim Nazzo, dentist Dr. Daniel Lapidus and Larry Ackerman, dermatologist Brad Kurgis, Rex Stevens at the Slow Wellness Center, Avila Bay Athletic Club and Spa, Michael Moore Sports Recovery, Joy Shell Beach, and California Fresh Markets, they're custom making me Jackie Robinson cupcakes for Friday. I am super pumped up. Coming up, Chris Berman, legendary sportscaster, one of the first in the business to have a following. He started way back in 1979. He's been a friend of mine for my entire career. Boomer, Chris Berman, coming up next on the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7, The Ticket.
We're back with the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio 1280. Here's CJ.
Okay, this is hilarious. Welcome back to the CJ Silas Show. I asked Gabe to call Chris Berman, and I knew this was going to happen. They're just going to talk. They're buddies, right? They're buddies. In fact, they're talking right now, and I can't pull Chris Berman up onto the show because he's still talking to Gabe. I knew that when I gave Gabe the job to call Chris Berman that this was going to happen. I knew that the two of them were going to become best friends, and I was going to have to wait for the guests to come on the show. Usually you make the guests wait to come on the show. But this time, it's the other way around. He is one of my oldest and dearest friends in the business, the original CJ Silas mentor with so many years in the business. I don't even need to introduce him, but I'm going to. 31 years on NFL Countdown. You know him from the 2-minute drill, Super Bowls, Monday Night Football, golf. The guy is a badass of the business, and I'm so lucky to call him my friend, Chris Berman, on the CJ Silas Show. Hello.
Hi, CJ. Well, oldest, yeah, I am. I don't know if I'm one of your. I'm certainly one of your older friends. That's for sure. It's nice to hear you laugh again. And look, your producer's a Giant fan, so he's good. He's good by me. We have some talking.
I know.
Lucy, you got a little explaining to do.
Oh, it's so funny. I remember earlier in the year. It was actually the fall. Our other friend Kahuna, who we've been friends with, you've known Kahuna longer than I have. We were in a 3-way text talking about Dodgers and the orange and black on a 3-way text, and we were all like, "How do you feel? You're nervous?" And it was the whole weekend because it was that 3-game series, and it was so fun to go back and forth with you.
Yeah, it was great. And then the post-game series. I mean, these to have to go to the very end to see who wins 107 or 106. I mean, it was. It was great baseball between two great rivalry, two teams. I mean, I enjoy watching the Dodgers as a baseball fan. I mean, I grew up San Francisco fan, even though I grew up in the Northeast. But Willie Mays, I'm old enough for him, just to tell your listeners. But I guess in San Luis Obispo, you're right on the border, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We've got, I would say, equal amounts of Dodger fans and orange and black fans here, for sure.
Well, it's like where I live, Connecticut. It's half and half Red Sox, Yankees, and then then there's a few Met fans over here, you know.
And now that you're semi-retired, you get to watch a lot more baseball because you were doing baseball play-by-play for a long time. So you get to enjoy your team a lot more now.
Well, I enjoyed doing it. I did a lot of West Coast games early on. I mean, that was when we got it, ESPN in the 90s. I enjoy the game of baseball. I really do. I hope it's in a pretty good place. I mean, we all had to wonder for a little bit. I mean, only baseball could cancel the second week of the season and then a day later reestablish it. I'm not saying that to knock them, but I mean, it's wow. But I do hope, in this I don't want to say non-COVID year, but at least the closest thing we've seen to, quote, normalcy, at least in the baseball stadium since 19, obviously, that baseball has a great year, because I know you and I have always shared that passion for baseball. I mean, many other sports, et cetera, but the baseball is, and you living right in the middle here of Dodger Giants and your listeners, I think it's great. I mean, how good was last year? Especially the Dodgers, you knew would be great. The Giants were a complete gift to Giant fans. So, maybe more of the same. Bring it on.
I loved it. It feels like, for me, when they're head-to-head at the end of the season, it's almost bigger and better than the World Series. And people that don't know the history of baseball, a lot of the young people don't realize that the Dodgers and the Giants started on the East Coast hating each other. And then the Dodgers came out, and then the Giants followed them because the Giants knew that West Coast was good, and they followed us. But a lot of young people don't even realize that the rivalry goes back further than the 1960s California rivalry, so it makes it even deeper. I think it's the best rivalry in sports, but I'm kind of a homer that way.
Well, it's as good as it gets. I mean, especially since it's bi-coastal, and of course in the New York. I mean, that's predating. Was I alive the last 3 years they were in New York? Yeah, but I can't say that I was at the Polo Grounds once when the Mets played there for 2 years. I mean, I know you don't want to go there necessarily in this interview, but and it was, oddly enough, the Giants played at the Mets. Dad took me for my 8th birthday. We were a Giant fan, me, my brother, and a couple cousins, maybe 2 other friends, and 2 station wagons. I mean, to dating ourselves in '62. And I do have a memory of the Polo Grounds with Willie Mays playing in it just from San Francisco. But, I mean, it's legendary. If you study the history of those two, and then imagine that they're in the same city as the Yankees with Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle. I mean, it's pretty good. Must have been pretty cool to be a baseball fan in the New York area in those days.
For sure.
I mean, that's even before me, CJ. I know that's hard to believe. I wasn't around then.
Okay, wait. When I said old, I didn't mean age. I mean, like, old friends. Like, how much time we've been friends.
No, you're all right. Okay. Don't worry. I'm playing with you.
You were 24 years old. A 24-year-old kid a month after ESPN started, and there you were in 1979, one of the OGs, the original gangsters of ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And here you are, still working with the same company, hopefully not as hard, because you've worked so hard in your life. When you look back at the Walk of Fame for Hollywood, that star, the baseball, the NFL, the Super Bowls, the awards, the Hall of Fame, the Emmys, how do you feel like maybe, wow, did I really do all that? Is that me?
I didn't get in it for awards and that kind of stuff. Anyone that does probably won't do a great job. I'm not saying I do a great job, but look, I'm semi-retired, as you know, and I've loved it. Again, we got to remember, you and I, you doing this show and me doing, and you working with me and us way back in the day, which is how we know each other and have rooted for each other. We have to remember that we're not in a coal mine, right? I mean, and we know that, and we're not making widgets, not to knock those folks, and we're lucky to do what we do, and so therefore, I think, Kenny Rogers, that there'll be time enough for counting when the day is done. I guess I've won these things and that, but that's not the point. I've been able to see these things. I've been able to, hopefully, in the prime times after Super Bowls, in the Baseball Tonight's, I didn't call the World Series, obviously, but, pre- and post-game, and there are others. I mean, we could go on all the U.S. Open golfs that I was fortunate to do. that I loved being there, and hopefully that came across the tube, as well as, forget me, that we're going to make you like it even a little more, because we're going to tell you how exciting this was, or what happened here, or here's some inside scoop that we just heard that you might be interested in, and it that's what I'm rewarded with. I'm rewarded with strangers. As you know, I spend a lot of the winters in Hawaii, right? So there are people from all over the place. And let's just say a couple came up. Where are you from? We're from North Dakota. We've been watching you a long time. Thanks for bringing, in the middle of winter, the energy. And it's like, that's the rewards that I like. It's not necessarily a star or an Emmy or whatever. It's perfect strangers coming up with a smile and going, hey, thanks for the years. And I go, look, we do it for you guys. If you weren't here, I wouldn't have had a job. And it sounds trite, but for those of us that, there were 75 of us, maybe, CJ, in 1979, 80.
Yep.
And we were the Mercury astronauts. We went up, but we didn't know where the hell we were coming down, And that's the reward, to see a place built and be a little part of it. I mean, and I mean that, a little part of it. I'm a quarterback, if you will, in the ESPN terms, and I get more credit than I deserve. Occasionally more blame than I deserve, but mostly more credit than I deserve. But they're friends, and you were there. We built the place together, and look at it now. I mean, it's we were lucky to have running water, CJ.
I
now
know.
Look,
we
right?
have the one building, and then the catwalk over to the studios. And then when ESPN Deportes came, there was some trailers in the parking lot. And then when the radio started, they squeezed them into a little closet right on the edge of the catwalk. And there are windows. You could see them in their studios. You're walking by to do other things. It's just incredible. I was there late after you, but Chris Berman.
What was your first year, CJ?
91. 90, because I graduated Syracuse early, and I came early 91, right around Valentine's Day. And you'd already been there 10 years.
Baby.
Right? Well, sort of. But I went to college late because of the acting stuff, remember? So that's why. Yeah.
Well.
He's Chris Berman. Some people call him Boomer. He has done so much in this business, and now, luckily, taking a little time for himself. He's a friend of the CJ Silas Show. I have to tell you something funny. Two of my memories, when I speak at college campuses now, or I meet young people and they interview me about, my career, how do you get in? And two things come up. The scariest time in my life, the scariest job I ever had is one, and you're involved, and the most rewarding job that I miss the most. So the most rewarding job that I miss the most is sitting in the war room, which was a conference room at ESPN with you, Sport, Chris Mortensen, Tom Jackson, sometimes Joe Theismann, and I think it was Lisa Krause. And we would, after doing game day, we would sit in this conference room, and we didn't even have enough TVs to watch all the games. We watched games in this conference room and then did NFL primetime later in the night. And that is a memory in my career. I felt so, and I think Lisa would agree, as a woman in the business, when we started, there were so few. It was like 6 women in that building, besides Robin Roberts and Ann Montgomery and Andrea Kramer when she showed up. There were a few of us production assistants. I always felt so comfortable and supported and safe in that room. And I had other issues that went on in the building, and that doesn't even matter, because those Sundays were such heaven for me. Then on the other side, the scariest thing, Chris, was running a frigging teleprompter for you, because you're an ad-libber. And I was so nervous all the time. You got to run the teleprompter for a boom. I'm like, what? Because you would write a script. Like, explain to the listeners how you did your show when we were back there behind the curtain doing the teleprompter.
Well, first of all, I also would probably, and I tell the prompter, well, to this day I don't. I mean, now I do fewer shows, and they're not prompted. It's prime time, and we wing it, and halftime, it's a shot sheet, etc. But I probably told you, just try to keep it about 2/3, and if I go off script, don't go looking for it. I'll get back to you.
Right.
Meaning, and don't get worried. The producer got more worried
Yes.
than you. It was like, where
Norby.
am I going? This section was supposed to be 4 minutes. We're already 4 minutes in. We're only halfway through, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm glad you got over that phobia. My goodness, I'd like to see a list of all the folks that prompted for me. But you know what? It probably, the way I would write a script, especially on a sports center, it would be, let's say L.A. was at San Francisco. You know, I'd write the score panel, Dodgers at Giants, ad lib, and then I'd put Los Angeles, San Francisco, meaning like you would see it on a graphic, VO, meaning a highlight, voice over, and that would be the script. The lead-in would be whatever I felt like saying for 20 seconds, and then roll it on, here we go from Candlestick, or whatever, you know, and the director knew. But here's the thing. It's not so much me. When we first started, you don't know this, it's not because we couldn't afford it, although we couldn't afford a lot, believe me. The number 2 in command, Scotty Connell, behind Chet Simmons, two guys that came over from NBC Sports to run it. At any rate, I'm going on and on. They did not want us to have prompters in the first few years. Now, if it's a serious story, it could be, you know, a lot of things. Then a prompter is really, you don't want to be looking down and up, because that's the type of story you're not ad-libbing. You better get your facts right. That's when a prompter is helpful. He goes, and I went, well, why not? And he went, I want you, anchors, to be talking with the viewer, not at him. I never forgot it. And so, okay, so prompters, you need them. There's 3-4 years in, et cetera. But even late in my career, I would, every third paragraph, I would read off the script or just ad-lib it. Just because if the prompter got lost, not shame on you, that these things happen. Sometimes, by the way, there's a mechanical. You better know where the hell you are. So I never forgot, talk with, not at. And we didn't have prompters the first few years. I would always chuckle when the younger, now I'm 60 almost, I'm 66, almost 67, when the younger, probably now 52, 53, the prompter would foul up either the person or more likely the machine would go off and they would get stage fright. Well, we didn't. So who knew that we were getting a great lesson way back when by not using them? You know what I mean? I mean, you didn't know that story. 3 years, we didn't have a prompter.
I did not know that. That's so nuts. Well, we were all really nervous because we wanted you to like us, because we're all these kids straight out of college coming into this business. We didn't know. We knew a lot about sports, but we knew nothing else. Even though I came from Syracuse, one of the best broadcasting schools, I still felt just blind when I walked into that building. I was so lucky to get that job out of college. He's Chris Berman, joining the CJ Silas Show. I want to talk a little bit about some stuff that's gone on in our world that my listeners have shared with me. And a year ago, you're not going to believe this, a year ago this month, one of our closest friends passed away unexpectedly in Calvin Haywood, and he was a director that you worked with for years. And then just recently, another friend that we both kind of grew up with in the business, John Clayton, passed away. And we're getting to the point in our ages, in our lives, Boom, that people that we loved and worked really closely with are going to start passing away. And that gift that you get when they pass away and you go through the grief and the sadness, but you get to have more memories again. You get to look back at some of the memories. And the reason I'm asking you this is something really crazy happened yesterday in the mail. This is a true story. Were you still getting John Clayton's Christmas postcards from him and Pat over the years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was a letter for years, and then it turned into a postcard when Pat got really sick and ended up she couldn't put the letters in the envelope, so she did little cards. Yesterday in the mail, true story, from Seattle, Washington, postmarked April 9th, 2022. I got my postcard from Pat and John. Yesterday, Boom. Yesterday, what is that? And it was postmarked April 9th, so it was last week. Like, how did that happen? What's going on? Isn't that nuts?
I don't know. But I feel honored by receiving it.
Right?
Look, not that you want to turn the show into not maudlin, but it's serious. I mean, it's life. I mean, I remember my dad telling me, he wasn't big on a lot of that kind of stuff, but he said, as my friend, and he said, this was, I must have been in my 30s, and Dad maybe was 60s, and of course, we hope to live longer now than they did then, right? So he said to me, I don't say this very often, that as my friend Stanley would tell me, they're starting to call our class. Now, this is turning, really pretty serious and sad, and I don't mean it that way. And I never understood that until, things started happening. I don't mean last year or what you just recited, but I think the lesson in it is to enjoy the people, especially the last 2 years when we really haven't seen all the people that mean something to us,
right.
Whether, for COVID, and that's obvious reasons. Enjoy them just as we enjoy sports, right? I'm not trying to compare the two, but take really extra joy out of the people you like and appreciate, whether you work with them, whether you're friends or they're mentors or whatever. And things like sports that make us happy. It's not the only thing. It could be a lot of things. Food, music, just basic laughter. I mean, go on. We can't take these things for granted. And we got a reminder without people having to pass away necessarily that were close to us when we couldn't see anyone for 2 years. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I know you didn't mean to make this left-hand turn, but John Clayton, Calvin, a name that doesn't mean much to many of your listeners, but was a dear, dear friend, a director, and I could go on and on and on. I mean, my wife passed 5 years ago. In a month would be May in 2017 already, and I don't say that for pity. I just say that's like all of a sudden John Saunders is 6 years. I could go on and on. People remember John.
Yeah, I can't believe she died 5 years ago. That's, oh my gosh.
Well, I know we're making a left-hand turn.
No, it's okay. My listeners know I take left-hand turns every week. That's what I do.
No, that's okay. That's why you're still on, because you'd be a perfect NASCAR driver. You turn left.
Totally. Hey, while we're talking about people, Meredith and Doug, how are they? How are the grandkids?
Our kids are great. Doug, they both are now L.A. area. Meredith got married in February, a longtime college beau, and Doug has been married for 5 years, and they have a little. I'm a grandfather. He has he and Claire have a 10-and-a-half-month little boy.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go. I'm officially older. I can't speak yet, so I don't know what I'm going to be called. It'll be whatever the hell he comes up with. It'll be my nickname. It'll be Turnaround is fair play, right?
Right, for sure. So that means you'll be on the West Coast more. You are going to be closer.
I am, although it's Dodger country, not Giant country, but we'll make do.
We will. Okay, one other, I want to just, a couple sports things, because I know that you love it as much as I do, and I was just so surprised recently, not only that Tiger decided he was going to play in the Masters, but then he made the cut. How did you feel watching him come back after that crazy car accident and then walking all of those holes last week?
Well, when he walked in the 72 holes that we saw, CJ, it wasn't like to put on but you didn't realize, you had to look really close to see him laboring, and that's relative. I mean, it's not laboring to me, but if he was going to play, this wasn't going to be dragging a leg. He thought he had a chance to do well. Of course, he gets in it to win, but I mean, when he had 71 the first day, and then I read all the golf writers, not all, like I expect him to shoot 68 tomorrow. It's like, I don't know. This is like a lot, even for him. Yeah. So it was a gift to see him play 4 days. Let's just leave it at that.
Totally.
I have no insight on it. I doubt he plays the PGA.
Yeah.
He loves St. Andrews, and I know he said that right away. That didn't surprise me at all, and that's in 3 months, right? So that's the British Open or the Open. What he'll do for PGA, I don't think so. This is not me on any knowledge now. U.S. Open, I think he'll, what he'll decide, if A, has he at least have another really good chance to play 4 good rounds in a major, or will that hinder him, seeing that it took him, I'm making this up, 6-7 weeks to come back from the Masters to where he thinks, okay, now I am when I teed it off in Augusta, that I don't want to jeopardize St. Andrews. I think even though U.S. Open and PGA or U.S., St. Andrews, the birthplace of golf, I think that's a precedent, and anything that derails him from that, he's going to have second thoughts about doing, even though they're majors, because those majors will be contested next year too. And even though he's not getting younger, he could be stronger than he is now. It was a gift watching him play, and I liked seeing him smile more. I thought that was great. Didn't you?
Yo, for sure. He looked more human to me than robotic that he'd been for all those years when he was just so intensely focused. And I hope he's happier. I really do, because sometimes those kind of things happen and you do shift on how you feel about the world and your own life. He is a 6-time National Sportscaster of the Year, a 10-time Emmy Award winner, 12 Cable Ace Awards. The awards go on. He's got the parking space here at the CJ Silas Show that he's never used. He's Chris Berman joining the CJ Silas Show. I want to ask you, because my listeners expect this from me, because it's Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball this week. We're celebrating the 75th year of him breaking the color barrier. But from your vantage point in 1979, from the ESPN perspective, watching it start with who it started with, and then growing into having more brown and black people come through and some women come through. And now, when you look at the pool of ESPN all over the world, not just at the campus in Bristol, there are people from all over the world, all walks of life, that work for ESPN now. The evolution of this network really does show, sort of like the military, sort of like sports, that it can integrate itself automatically because it's just that kind of business. What's your perspective on that?
Well, we learn from everyone we work with. It doesn't have to be me being on air learning from only other on-air people, if you will, or, the people that you cover. I can learn, and still can, from people behind the scenes, and so therefore we're talking all levels, if you will. I don't like to use that word, for putting on a TV show, if you will, and different backgrounds. I mean, it's. I'm going to expand it a little bit because I don't want to. In the ESPN, we all have our warts. The company does. I do. You do. Anyone that doesn't think they do is kidding themselves, obviously. But the one thing, and this is not what you brought up, but I want to get this on the show because you're going and we're heading toward Jackie Robinson, which, aren't you still embarrassed to hear it? All right, let me get to that next, because I know you texted me and said, well, we'll talk about that, and as we should. My point is, what I learned about 10 or 15 years in, not that I'm so smart, but that sports, and this is not a political statement, CJ, this is I think you back me on this. I would think most people out there would. Like, we need things to bring people together. This is not political in any stretch of the imagination. But sports, in its purest sense, of course, the participants, you hope, and fans, which we are, we can be male and female, you and I. We can be old and young. We can be white and black. We can be rich and poor. What I've learned through the years is that someone shining shoes in an airport and somebody making 8 figures, well, we could have the same, having never met, conversation about last night's game, whatever that is, for 5 minutes, and just as intelligent with whoever the other person is if they're a fan. So again, I'm not trying to look through rose-colored glasses. It's not the question you asked me. But what sports can do, and I wish we had more things and would think more like it, is, let's just have a conversation or let's enjoy the same thing, no matter what you look like or who you are. Again, I know that's a pipe dream in some ways, but it should not be. And that's been one of the most uplifting things in my 43 years at ESPN, and observing how it can be like that, a unifier. To put it in American history terms, as a history major, Ellis Island-like, although I would never compare that to that.
Right.
But I'm. So you mentioned ESPN, but I'm looking at it as sports, and it's not the only place where we can bring together all sorts, but it's a hell of a start. And I look at it that way more so than I ever did, certainly when I was a younger man.
Sports brings everyone together. You can be in a bar or in a stadium and not know anyone. You could come from completely different backgrounds, and you connect with the win, you connect with the happy, you connect with the joy, with the success, and you also connect with the disappointment in the loss. You look at stadiums when a home run is hit, or a big touchdown, or a pick six, or whatever the play may be in any sport, a slam dunk, a steal in the NBA, and you look around and you're high-fiving people that may not have anything in common with you. It brings everyone together, and it's super joyful. And I talked about this a lot during the pandemic because we all were trying to find joy, and even though there weren't fans in the stands for a lot of sports for a while, we still got joy out of sports. Those of us sitting at home, month after month after month in isolation, and I feel really lucky that this is the business that I look at.
No, we're all very lucky.
Yeah,
and just to put it in our job, we do what we love to do, but hopefully we can help shine a little light and make somebody smile a little bit and maybe enjoy something a little bit longer than they would have otherwise. Although the games themselves, when they're great games, they speak for themselves. They don't need us. So true.
So true. I kept you longer than I should have. I always do. This is one of my big mistakes when people say, what's your regret? As my interviews go too long. But I wanted to thank you because we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio. And there were so many times in my life since I met you in 1991, whether I bumped into you at an all-star game or we talked on the phone or we had an email or whatever it was, where I had just gotten laid off, or my partner didn't like me, or whatever had happened, some disappointment in this job. And you are one of the few people that never said to me, oh, maybe you should do something else. Maybe you want to go down, into the production line, maybe start doing coordinating producer, maybe be a director. You always said to me, and it stuck with me the entire time. You said, CJ, you just can't stop pushing. You cannot give up. And you wrote on the poster that I have of you, that big poster with the sunglasses that I don't even know if you remember that you had when you were probably, 40 years old in this business. And you signed it, and it said, I'll save a seat for you. And you called me, I know you probably remember this, but you gave me a nickname too, Under Siege from the movie. That's what I got. Mm-hmm. And it said Under Siege on my poster. And I've met so many people in my career, and Chris, you never once said, well, CJ, you have been trying a long time. You always said, well, you got to keep trying. So I thank you for that. I thank you for showing up for me, answering the call. When I called your assistants when you were so busy and you couldn't have fit in another interview, and you always fit in my show, and you always continue to tell me that I was good at what I did, never give up, don't stop. And I wanted to thank you because I might not still be doing this if I didn't have that little group of people that said, don't give up. People that were in the business, and it mattered to me. So thank you. And I hug you from a distance, and I hope to see you soon because I want to give you a really big hug.
You're welcome. I wouldn't have said it if you weren't good at it and didn't have the heart for it and didn't have the love for it. I mean, that's really what I'm trying to say. So that was no BS. That poster was probably the Berminator poster.
Yes,
right?
the Berminator. I still have
it. They don't exist. Hold on to that. I have many Gridfather posters. Berminators are kind of an extinct thing. You better hold on to it.
I have it. It's still in a frame. It really is. So thank you.
Well, that's a great. Listen, I wrote down something this morning, knowing that you're. I don't want. I mean, you'd be embarrassed to be called a pioneer, but my God, you've stuck with it. To your point. You had and again, I don't want to make it all crazy just because you're a lady that has a sports talk show. I mean, that's why not? But you had a win for a manager named Rachel Balkovec, who was managed last night, managing the single A team of the Yankees in Florida.
Yes.
And you had a first base coach of the Giants.
Yes.
Alyssa Nacken went in because the first base coach got tossed,
right,
but so what?
Still.
And and they stuck with it.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down this morning, knowing that you had asked me to come on, and I didn't want to not, we skirted not the issue of Jackie Robinson, and we went a long time anyway, and we both celebrate him, and I'm still embarrassed by what he and everyone like him. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I mean, he passed long before I had a chance to meet him. I met Rachel a couple of times, his wife, and I was fortunate enough to be at the game. We're at the Met game, fittingly National League New York, when Commissioner Seelig retired all the 42s, and had President Clinton with me for an inning, and talked about the significance of what he did, et cetera. And so I very clearly remember when baseball decided we need to honor and tell young people who don't understand who he was, how he did it, and how we should be forever grateful. So we had some women pioneers yesterday. We had Jackie Robinson, and stick with it.
Yes.
And thanks for bringing up the Berminator. I hadn't thought of that in a while.
Oh, my gosh, you're wearing the sunglasses. It's so funny. I'm looking down at my dog named Mr. Robinson. He's sitting right at my foot right now because I had to name him after my WWJD. I love you, man. I appreciate you. You are a hero and a friend and a mentor, and your heart is so big, and I'm grateful for you. And I'm serious. When you get to the West Coast, I will make a trip down to L.A. just so I can say hello to you, because it's been way too long that we've seen each other in person. Thank you so much.
Congratulations on the anniversary, CJ.
Thank you.
Keep entertaining the folks there in San Luis Obispo.
All right. Yep. Give my love to the folks in Bristol.
I will.
All right. Take care.
See you.
Chris Berman, legend at ESPN on the CJ Silas Show. Oh, my gosh. We've gone way too long. That was amazing. I'm trying not to weep. We're coming back. It's the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio, 1280 AM and FM 101.7, The Ticket.
Welcome back to the CJ Silas Show. From her perch atop Madonna Mountain, let's hear it for C.
Oh, my goodness. So I went long because I was talking to Chris Berman, and he is wonderful and a little long-winded, so we didn't get to our Cal Poly Sports Update. Forgive me, Cuesta, Hancock, and Cal Poly. Jackie Robinson Day this Friday is our Black History moment on the show. We will do more Black History next week. Next week, more baseball on the CJ Silas Show, and I'll tell you how the cupcakes taste. Woohoo! I'm out.
Thanks for listening to the CJ Silas Show. Find her podcast on the CJSilasShow.com. Follow her on all social media platforms, including her YouTube channel. Make an appointment to listen every Wednesday on ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7. CJ out.